Okay, I want to show you what I've done for the my tabletop. When you buy lumber, obviously, and I don't know how well this show up, but I'm sure you've probably seen it. It's rounded on the corners, which is usually helpful. I mean, it prevents slivers and a lot of other issues. But in building a table, I really don't want that on the top because it creates this gap where it's going to collect dust and dirt and things that scratch guitars, for one thing. So if I was a normal woodworker, I'd have a planer in my shop and I would just put the table together in pieces and run it through. I'm not. So what I did is created a jig. I left one uncut so I can show you what I did. But basically I cut about 3/16 of an inch off the top of this so that when I can glue them together to make a flat table. I may have to do some more work when they're together, but it's a lot closer. So I'll show you what I did. Part of this, I had some crappy shelves when I bought this house over on the wall behind the camera. So I took those, made it a little hard to make it a nice level or straight jig, but I did, came pretty close. Let me zoom in and I'll kind of show you a little bit more. Okay, this is the one I want to rip. What I do is if there's any curvature this way, I put that towards here because I can fix that. I then double check, and it is just slightly from what I need. So probably all I need, and that is right on the money. Okay. So this. Been alternating on other sides of this because I probably want to use these later. We'll see. When I pull my table together and glue it. Move the camera while I go, so. All right, welcome back. I have finished the other set of legs, and right after ending filming of the last one, I realized I'd forgotten something. So I wanted to show that to you. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I say I'm going to zoom in, it won't let me. What I left out, and fortunately I thought of it before I did these, is I also wanted a board coming across the top. And so I notched this out 3.5 inches. Okay, I admit I had to go back and redo those the hard way, the first ones. And I did mess one up a little bit. It made it a little bigger, but I just have to adapt when I make the cross member. But basically I'm still going to use a 2x6, but this part will have a tongue so that it'll give it more support here. And of course one on the other side. And that calculating that and cutting that is going to be the next step. Okay, so I just want to show you the end joints that I made. You've already seen how I cut them, so no need to watch me do that. For the top one, I basically just cut this out a little bit so it does sit, and just like that. Give the top some more stability and help hold it steady. On the bottom one, mortise and tenon joint without the face. So based on that, I will end up putting in later a 2x4 down along here so that I can put in a shelf. But I'm going to do that after it's all together to make sure I can make it a nice tight square fit. What I'm also going to do, since I've measured this so that as I put the 2x4s that I'll show you, the last one should come up to here so I can have a nice, so that I can just cut out. Hard to explain, but one of these side I'm going to glue and I'm going to fasten. The other side I'm just going to screw in for now, so that if I have to nudge this a little bit either one way or another to get a nice fit, I can still do that. Same down here and on the other end. So that's where we'll go from here. All right, I prepped this. I've really learned a valuable lesson. Whenever you have the opportunity, do the other side first to figure out your mistakes before you try to film. So I totally glued the wrong parts of this, what I wanted. So we're going to do it again. And I did learn a couple tricks. Well, one trick. 2, mark what you want to glue. And I decided I'm putting a screw on either end to kind of like pull it together tight, just to make sure. I was trying to do it with my hand and it wasn't working so well. So I'm going to do, whoops, I marked all the spots that I want to glue ahead of time, so I will hopefully avoid that mistake again. Okay. According to the directions, this should just go right together. Oh man. Just like that. I think I need a condenser. Oh, I knew it would agree with me. All right. Then, I'm totally blocking the camera, but these screws here to pull it together. Across here. And I want to see real quick how my dimension is looking so far. Yeah, I knew that was a little out of square. I'll have to adjust that with the top. Yeah, it's that one. No. I'll have to see do this. Make sure I don't have to loosen that a little bit. No, that's right on, 15 inches. So, we just have to make that up on the top. All right. I'm going to do, pull this over a little bit. Alright, now do the top piece. And yes, I marked, not the top though. Whoop. Okay, so the next step, other than cleaning up my glue here, is to start laying out the top. Okay, the first thing you'll probably notice is that I have the base of my work table hogtied. It was trying to get away. No. When I got done with everything, I found out that it had gone out of square a little bit, jostling it around. And so I just tied from corner to corner on the bottom to try to pull that in a little bit and to make sure it didn't tweak the top at all, and it did a little bit. I just did the same thing here to just make sure that everything's kind of pulled in the way it should be. The next thing I'm going to do, I picked one of my nicer boards for the outside of the table, and I've measured 13 inches here from the end, because that's the distance I need for my vise that I'm going to put actually out here when I get to that point. So I'm going to go ahead, glue this up and attach it. And then come back and I'll put in the filler pieces here. And I'm going to start working this way across the table. So that's what we'll do now. Okay, before I get too far ahead on this, I fastened my outside piece. I cut the inside piece and both ends. So far, I've only done the inside piece. And so I used clamps both to get them lined up on top as close as I can, and that worked out really well. I did that, and then along the way, so I put in three screws, I guess. How I count. The end, the middle, and the end. Mostly I want the glue to hold it together. The screws are partially a clamp. And along the way, I used this just to make sure everything that was pulled together really nice and tight. And before I screwed it, and now I have this one here. These seem to be, since I've got that screw in, what I'm going to do is release these, and instead go along and pull this tight all the way along, because the other way direction really shouldn't change now. I'm hoping. So much where the screw is. Okay, that's looking really good. And I think before I go any further, I'm going to take my wife out to lunch today and do some running around. So this will probably instantly be tomorrow by the time you see it. So see you then. Good morning. All right, just to let you know where I am. Wonderful lunch yesterday, by the way. This morning I came in, I went ahead and I glued on the two end pieces of the second board. And I'm going to tell you my original idea of how I was going to go about leveling this off, and the fact that it didn't work very well. My idea was that by using clamps and a board on top, I could kind of level it out. And it worked to a point. I could probably use a heck of a lot more clamps to do that and maybe it'd be better. But once I tried to like make sure it's all square and everything, I didn't have enough control. I needed to do it a little bit smaller scale. What I found out so far, and I have not fastened this yet, I seem to have a little bit better control and luck simply by holding this and like here, that's now this one isn't working great. Get over here. It could be inconsistencies in the cut since I didn't actually use a table saw. See, now that adjusted really well. Part of it also is this is already glued and it may be a little bit out. As I go across, I'm going to use a larger frame, square, just to make sure in general it's as level as I can make it going in. But that is improved a little bit. So what I'm going to do, oops, is loosen the clamp. Not intentionally. There we go. See that tick down. At least nice seam here. I'll tighten it up. I'm going to go across this whole thing. That actually dropped a little bit, but could also be because inconsistency here. Double check here, that's down a little bit. So hopefully I'm going to have a little bit more control. Put together a little bit better, all the way across. Then I'm going to put a screw about every 16 inches. And the reason I want to be consistent, I'm marking it here so the next one I can be off a little bit so I'm not hitting the previous screw. But I want to know where they are because I may be putting indexing holes in this later on and I want to avoid hitting those screws. So I just have to have a good idea of where they are and avoid that. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, put the screws in to set the position. That way I can just back them out, take off the board, glue it up, and using those previously drilled screws, hopefully line this up really well again and double check it as I go. Okay, I have built the tabletop up to the point where I have to start adjusting for my vise. I have many vices, but this is the only one I have to adjust for today. Excuse me. Okay, so what I've done, I want the top of my vise to be just a little bit below my tabletop. And my tabletop is going to get a little thinner anyway because I'm going to have to do something, plane it, sand it, something to make it more even than it is. So I worked in a board at this moment, hopefully this will show up, is about a 1/4 inch above the top of the vise. That gives me, this is 3/4 of an inch, that gives me 1/2 of an inch to grip with. That should grow. So I've cut this 5 of my next boards this way, and that'll take me right up to my tenon, which I'm sure doesn't show up on the camera. So far, the distance from here to the tenon, looks like it's going to work out perfectly as far as fitting all the boards the way I want them. So the next thing I'm going to do, I want to step back. As I put this together, what I found, the easiest way I found to get these to fasten the way I want was I started with the center, and I usually use 2 clamps, one to pull them this way, and sometimes that was enough. If it was close enough, I could tap and get it nice and flush on top. Otherwise, I might have to use a vise to pull them like this. The middle I usually didn't because I didn't have anything else going on. I would then work usually from there out to each side. Sometimes I found depending on what the board was doing, I might have to start on the outside and work and adjust the middle. But each time I would pull it tight this way. If I need a vise to get it where I want it, do it this way, get it nice and flush, and I put the screws all the way in. I'm doing this all without glue. So it's all screwed together where it should be. I then back out the screws and spread the glue on and then put back in place. There are times where I thought, okay, well, I need to clamp a little bit more here or there. But for the most part, the screws did the job for me, mostly. So, okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get these next 5 on so that the vise is set, and then finish up with the next 2 boards as well. Well, we have a bit of a pause here. Turns out this board is twisted enough that I really can't pull it in tight with screws alone. So I put these 2 clamps on, and I'm just going to have to let it set and dry so that I can continue. So until then. Okay, I've got the top completely built. Obviously I'm gonna have to do some smoothing out. Still thinking about how I want to try that. Regardless, I don't have what I need. But these, I already did the others, but these stick up a bit, and I thought I'd show you this really cool Japanese saw. It's a pole saw. And I bought it, actually it was on Driftwood's site that he recommended it, Chris did. And this thing is so sharp that, seriously, it's like butter. Trick is keep it from like cutting into the top, but it really works quite well. Getting a little bit off there. Go from this side. I'll have to do some work on that too, but I want to take the majority off. I haven't used this saw very much. I just got it, so it's kind of a new experience. It only cuts on the pull. That's the thing. It's very thin. There we go. Yeah, I'll do the rest with a plane. I went in a little bit because of the grain there, but you get the idea. All right. Well, I have a lunch date with my wife. Some running around to do, so that's I'm going to call it for today. And besides, I'm probably going to need some tools and decisions to be made on how to proceed from here. So I'll see you soon. It'll be instantly another day. Morning. So yesterday our afternoon plans changed. After lunch, I came back here and put a couple 3 hours into sanding the top of the workbench. And this is an idea I had for the tops and the backs originally to get them to the thickness I want instead of using a plane. And so I got a chance to try it out. It's a lot of work on a table, but I think it'll work great for my original plan. So what I did, I took a piece of that crappy shelf. It's basically a piece of 2 by 12, nice and flat, and went to the hardware store, got the coarse sandpaper I could find, 60 grit. It wasn't self-adhesive, so adhesive. It worked pretty good. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I needed the exercise. And other than the fact that I've got the boards dipped a little bit, mostly on one end, which is making a lot more work to get it exactly flat. And I'm going to put some more work into it. But I will be completely covered with dust as I was yesterday, so I thought I'd do the video now. But this worked quite well. and just fasten the board. In the future, I would use a board all the way across. I would use a lot. It would be more comfortable on my hand. But I just basically, for the most part, on the high parts, I would go along the grain, but I would also go across the table at an angle to try to keep working on getting it flat. Other than the effort, it saved me buying a plane, like a jack plane that $160 anyway, I don't know, depends on the plane, that I would probably use one time. So anyway, yeah, I thought, considered this a win, actually. When I do, I will make a larger one for when I do the tops, because what I really want, I'll do it this way, and cut it longer, because I like it to cover the entire top of the guitar, so I can stand along the grain, and it'd be easier to keep everything nice and flat. But that's for a future video. Oh, word of warning, you don't need much of this. The first time I sprayed both the paper and the board, and you do have to change the paper. That took a bit of effort getting the first one off, so lightly spray. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to just trim off the end of the table. I'll start with the circular saw, which won't go all the way down, but it'll cut most of it. And I'll probably take the rest off with the hand saw. But just to get it nice and flush, I'll probably sand it a little bit after that. But I'll do that on both sides, but I'll show you what I'm doing here. Okay, this is an insert. While editing this video, it occurred to me that there's something I could have mentioned to make it easier. When I was sanding this, seriously, I probably spent 2.5 and 3 hours stretch just solid sanding, which can be tiring. And I used a technique that my wife and I learned in martial arts that we took for several years, pre-pandemic. And I thought I'd show it to you, and I think it'll save some energy. So, you know what? One moment. I'm going to set the mood. Now we have the correct ambiance. But seriously, let me show you. If you're working on this and you're just using your arms, you're going to get really tired. Now this is probably not the correct way of using a planer, but for doing this, I think it worked really well. And all you basically do is keep your arms stiff and you fall into it. You let your body do the work and just get a rhythm. Don't try to hurry, it won't work. So that's just my little insert for this video. Thanks. Okay, I just clamped down my fancy bench here, or fence, sorry, on the bench. And I'm just going to use that as a straight edge to cut this as square as I can and flush. Okay, that took it most of the way through. I'll now use the Japanese saw. I'll finish this up, and I'll do the same to the other side. Yeah, that's nice. Then I just sand that a little bit and we'll be good. Okay, I'd like to show you what I did on the bottom of the table for the shelf. I found a use for those crappy 2x12s, and I made myself a bottom shelf using them. All I really did, very simple, I just put some 2x4s in, 1.5 inches below the top, so it'd be flush. And I just have to slide this last one in. One other thing I did, and I'll demonstrate in a second, are these wheels. These retractable wheels that I can use to move the bench around. So basically, lifts it off the floor and it can roll. I'll show that to you now. All right, I've engaged the wheels, and you can see it's a heavy table, but it moves around quite easily. So all I have to do is clear my spot out with the lumber I've been using to make this, and all I have to do is disengage the wheels, and there it sits. I can either use it there or bring it out into the room so I can work around the table. I still have to put on that end my vice clamp, but I need 4 bolts, and my hardware store down the street is closed on Sundays, so that's no big deal. I can do it later. And I'm eventually going to incorporate a go deck on this end of the table, but that's for another day. I still have to build that. So I'm pretty happy. I do have a problem. It's one of the legs, it wobbles a little bit. So I'm going to have to shim under one of the legs to get it a little more stable. Other than that, it's pretty good. It's very solid. So if you stuck around for the whole video, thank you. And next time, hopefully, I will be starting to learn how to make a guitar. So take care.